Ooh, what's up everyone? I don't know if you saw the video of where we trailered the car all the way from Texas to California to do a dyno session to get tuned and finally get on track. If you haven't, you should check that out. It's kind of a fun one. Anyway, so with that video, there's so much going on that I wasn't able to provide a bunch of details, so I wanted to do a more detailed video about the tuning session and the power it made and what we tried, and then also just what the car felt like on track besides friggin' awesome. So anyway, but if you're new to following this, I'll give you the specs on the engine before we actually talk about the power it made. So basically it's a F20C, but it's got, so I kept the stock 84 millimeter 2-liter crank, but it's been bored out to 89, and it has 12.5:1 compression pistons in it, and toe to seat cams, and then it's a VTEC killer setup. So we have the Ferrea 4-piston aluminum rocker arms in there, and I designed the intake, and then it's got a Toda header with a custom 3.5-inch exhaust, which to be honest is 3.5 is probably overkill. I think I only need a 3, but at the time we went with 3.5. Anyway, so that's the basic specs on the motor. Just maybe a little more detail. It has titanium rods too to reduce the weight, because I did expect to be able to rev it to 10,000 RPM, which we did on the dyno. And if you're not aware, we ran this car with the same exact setup basically, but with VTEC. We found out that maybe we shouldn't be using the VTEC rockers if we're going to rev it up that high. So anyway, now it's VTEC killer, and that's the specs of the engine. So anyways, so my car is tuned by BBR Tuning. He's a guy out in California, super talented guy, and he used to be the lead tuner for Singer Porsches, and then he also worked at AEM. So he's got a lot of experience and done a lot of higher end cars, so he's really good. But so basically for the dyno, it was a hub dyno. So it's what is it called? Dynapack was the brand of dyno it is. And what is interesting, because this is the kind that you take the wheels off and the dyno bolts to the hubs, opposed to just being on a roller. What's interesting is he told me that that dyno and those dynos in general read about the same as a dyno jet, which is what my car was being tuned on previously. And he said that it usually reads about the same or slightly lower than those dyno jets, where it's actually got the wheels are factored in. So I thought that was weird, because you would think we're eliminating the tire, so you're gonna be more efficient basically delivering the power to the dyno, so it would read higher. But he said no, it's the same or slightly less. And last time I made like 240, 242, I can't remember the exact number, but it was right at like 240, which I thought was kind of low. Anyway, but last time I was just running, I didn't have my intake system, I just had the sausage, the big sausage filters that go over the trumpets. So that could be part of the reason why it read lower too. Anyway, so the three things we tried were my full intake system, and then I noticed actually that my plenum was like flexing a little bit when he would do a full pull, so indicating that there was a vacuum inside the plenum. So we were like, okay, let's try it, remove the air filter from the equation. So we just took the hose off and ran it just with the carbon plenum. And then the third thing we tried was just removing the plenum and everything, and just running open throttles and seeing how that affected it. So basically we're kind of just validating the intake system I designed, and if it is hurting things or making it better. And the short is, it actually made everything better. So he said that as the car was just sitting there idling and it was fully heated up and warmed up and been running for a while, as soon as he would start to do a pull, the IATs, the intake air temperatures, would drop down 10 degrees roughly. So it is pulling in cold air and doing its job basically. So with the intake system, the max power he saw with all his different pulls was 262. So pretty good jump from the previous tuning, and it's yeah, the intake was doing its job, and I was pretty happy with that number. I mean, like, I didn't expect it to be that high actually, just because last time it was 240 and we're still running everything the same minus the VTEC killer setup. So I'm not sure what the discrepancy is there besides the intake. But one thing I will say, so the second thing we tried, because I saw that little bit of deforming, that was a sign that we had vacuum in the plenum, we took the hose off and we made 12 less horsepower. I think we made 250, like right on the nose. And I guess this is just all attributed to intake air temps. I mean, we even had the hood open, so I think this delta would be even worse if the hood was closed, just because it would be trapping more heat in there. So anyway, 10 or 12 less horsepower with just the plenum. And then we thought, okay, maybe the plenum, like without something guiding the air in there, it's causing weird things. So we took the whole plenum off, and same thing, 12 horsepower down again. And it seemed like it's basically IAT. So what we did was, there's a picture, I just pointed one of the fans directly at the throttle bodies, and that actually made more power. So I'll show you the dyno graph comparing with the intake system, and then the dyno graph overlaid is the dyno graph that is with me pointing the fan at it. So basically it's open throttle bodies but getting cold air. And that actually made 265 horsepower. So 265 horsepower, which isn't a big deal. I mean, yeah, I'd love to get an extra 3 horsepower, but and it actually made it at a little higher RPM too. But the bigger deal was the mid-range. Like, it made, like you can see the little humps here, it made like a considerable amount more just after 5,000 RPM. And then even the 7,000 area was making more power. So that the mid-range was the big jump there, which is not what I expected with open throttle bodies. But anyway, kind of interesting. I'd like to figure out if there's a way that I can somehow get that mid-range, because that would be nice coming off a corner to have that extra, I don't know, I think I had that 5,000 RPM range, which I probably won't be coming off a corner at 5,000. It would probably be higher than that, but anyway, that 7,000 area will be where I'm coming off a corner. It would be nice to get that little extra torque and power. So anyway, those were the 3 methods we tried, and obviously there's no way to, I mean, I guess you could make a scoop, like somehow that would feed air right into your open throttle bodies, but I'm definitely not going to run open throttle bodies. It's too risky for when you pay so much for an engine to not filter the air, basically. So it's not something that's feasible, but it is an interesting discovery, I guess. So that was the dyno. It was pretty cool. Like I said, Beau did a really good job, and it's pretty quick too. I thought it was going to take longer than that. So I'm very happy with that. It's a decent amount more power than I was expecting. I was expecting like at most 250. So to get 262 was great. But am I happy with that overall long term with the car? No. I think I can make more power with a better designed exhaust system, header mainly, and then I don't know. I think there's just more potential. Even though this is technically a 2090 cc engine, you know, it's not the big strokers like most the guys that get close to 300 horsepower wheel. Are the guys with the big 2.4, 2.5 strokers, but I still think I can get close to 300 at the wheels. It's just going to take more engineering, basically. So I'm not happy with it long term. I'm still going to try to push it to get up to 275, 280, 290. So anyway, but that'll work for now. I'm happy to get on the track with that. So let's get into the fun part, what it was like to drive. So I'm also going to give you a breakdown in case you don't know the details of this car, because it's a decent amount different than your average track S2000. So the biggest one is the weight. It's under 2,200 pounds right now, so I'm not sure exactly the number. It was It was right at 2200 before I had the carbon trunk, and then obviously I'm deleting headlight, so I'm going to delete this one too. And I don't know if there's anything else I did since then to cut weight, but anyway, it's under 2,200 pounds, so that's a big one. And then this actually does have a rear bias weight distribution, so it's I think I forget what it was, like 48 point something percent front weight, and then 51 point something rear weight. So that's a little bit unique too. And then one of the biggest ones is it has manual steering. That was a big question for me because I've driven cars with manual steering before, but never a car that can go as fast as this one on track and corner as hard as this one. So there's some unique things. And I wasn't running a splitter this last weekend, so I just had the wing and then my little charge speed lip, which is semi-splitter-ish, but nothing going underneath it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a rever too, so it made peak power right at like 9,000, but it kind of carries that peak power. What I have here up to 9,500. So like I was ringing it out to 9,500, so it revs and it makes power all the way out there. But what it was actually like to drive, so it's pretty nuts. I haven't really been on the track but like a handful of times in the past 4 years, like literally maybe 5 times in the last 4 years. And I've never driven a car that is full roll cage or full race car. So that's another thing I didn't mention, is it's got a full roll cage that's tied into the front strut towers. Like I designed all of it, so it's very stiff roll cage. And going from a convertible with just a roll bar in it before to now a full roll cage race car was another big change. So what is kind of funny, I didn't make it there for the first session because the way the email, I don't know, I got confused. Anyway, so we got there later than we should have. So we didn't go out the first session. So I went out the second session. Everyone else is already kind of warmed up and broken in. And I just happened to go out first on my first session. So everyone was behind me and I was holding everybody up because I was taking it pretty easy for the first couple laps. But anyway, right away, the first thing I noticed is it freaking accelerates pretty darn good, like from $5,000 up, which, usually you'd have to be in VTEC well, then I don't even have VTEC, but usually you'd have to be in VTEC for it to feel like it's actually moving, and it never felt like it was accelerating that hard. Not that it feels like it's accelerating like a freaking Corvette or anything, but it accelerates pretty good. I think obviously we're making more power, but a lot of it is just the weight. Like I had an EG Civic with an ITR motor and it was fully stripped. Like I've always been obsessed about weight, and my Civic was probably under 2,000 pounds and then made maybe 220 horsepower or something like that. So this finally feels like that did, just because I think all the mass I took out of it. So acceleration wise, like if I had to guess, I bet you this is like a high 12-second quarter-mile car now, which isn't fast by today's means, but it's not bad for a four-banger. So anyway, it actually moves. It felt like, I guess the best thing I could compare it to, which is something I thought about when developing this car, was I was trying to match the power to weight ratio of a GT4 Cayman, the older one, the 2016 one. And oddly enough, in my session there was a GT4 older one, and we both came onto the main straight, right? Like I was just pacing him basically, and he didn't pull from me the whole time. We were like the same speed all the way down the straight. So I kind of met my goal of matching the power to weight ratio of a GT4. Anyway, so that's the acceleration, but and then the handling, like if you know button wheel turn 2, I think they call it off ramp, where it's like a really slow right-hander that goes up. Like previously when I have ran there, you could feel the chassis kind of twist, just because it's kind of weird. Like you're really loading the car up, and then it's kind of like articulating the suspension too. And yeah, you could definitely tell that the car is not flexing. Or I mean, I'm sure it's flexing a little bit, but it's not flexing enough for me to notice it anymore. So the chassis is way stiffer. And then another thing I noticed is, so I have JRZ, what are they called? RS Pro, I think, but I have the DA50 shaft upgrade, which basically kind of puts it on the same level as their Motorsports damper. And anyway, I could definitely tell over the Öhlins Road and Track that I used to use, it's like a way higher quality damper, which makes sense. I mean, the Öhlins are $2,000. I think these retail for like $6,000 or something like that. So it's a huge, it's triple the cost, right? So so I could definitely tell the dampening right away was way better. But that said, I just left the dampening, all the clickers where they came from the factory. So everything was basically at 3 from full soft of everything. So it's a 3-way adjustable. So it's high speed compression, low speed compression, and then a low speed rebound. And they are all just at their 3rd, whatever setting from soft, 3rd click from soft. And it definitely needs more dampening. Like say the very last turn of the S's, or maybe it's the second to last apex of the S's at Button Willow, you usually smash that curb pretty hard, and it was still kind of jouncing, like it's supposed to be, and it goes back to normal. Well, this was like, so I could definitely tell it needed more dampening, but oddly you could tell that the dampers were better, and that part of that could be just the chassis now being stiffer too, so they're working more appropriately or as designed, I guess. Yeah, so handling wise, it wasn't too bad. So I'm not running a rear sway bar, I'm running the Carceps front bar, and I think I have it in the 4th position. So I think there's 6 on here, so 3 from full stiff on the front. That I'm running that front bar, no sway bar, so no rear sway bar. So I thought like the handling would be way out of whack because the dampers are just at their base setting, and then only running a front sway bar, and it's twice as stiff as the factory sway bar, and they're not running any rear. I just thought like this thing's going to be like a nightmare at first, and it's going to take a long time to dial it in, but it was pretty darn good. Like I think I do have too much front roll stiffness, so that turn 2 I was talking about where you really load up the car going up that little off ramp or whatever they call it, I felt like I was lifting a rear or the front wheel, which means you have too much front roll stiffness. So I might back the front sway bar back one to see how that feels, but I definitely need to play with the clickers and all that stuff, so I'm going to have to develop a process to dial it in further. But it's like not like it's way off to where I was like, man, this thing is sketchy to ride or drive. It was like pretty good, way better than I thought it was going to be. From the dampening, let's go to the steering. So the manual steering, I still think the vote is out on this one yet, because it saved me 30 pounds, so it's a huge weight savings to go to this manual steering. So I wasn't pushing it that hard until the last session of the day, and I only did 3 sessions, and I only did 3 laps the first session, 3 laps the second session, and 4 the last one. And I only started pushing it a little bit on like the slow stuff and that. So I didn't even, like the high speed stuff, I wasn't pushing it to the limit there, just because I still don't have confidence that everything's not going to break. So I was only pushing in the slow stuff on the 3rd session. Like when you really get the car loaded, like if you're driving at 80% manual steering, no problem. It feels, I was like, oh, this is no big deal. But once you get it to like that limit where you're at the 1.2, 1.3 cornering G, it's pretty stiff. But that said, it was way more communication than the freaking electric rack. Like the whole car was kind of nuts. It was kind of like communication overload, because the chassis is a lot stiffer now. I have the full wise fab, so everything's the solid suspension joints, no rubber anywhere. So like I was feeling so much that like it was kind of overwhelming. So I'm like, holy shit, there's just so much going on here, and the car is telling me, but I'm not used to receiving this much information, because I'm used to you know, a road car with some bolt-ons. So it was pretty crazy. But the steering specifically, yeah, once you got it loaded up, it was very stiff, but like there was only a couple times that I was stepping the back end out, because like I said, I wasn't trying to go that crazy first day, but it was like instant, like I knew when it was going to happen and I was correcting it. Like I knew how to drive, and I was here, which is not very high up, and I'm probably down here because it's been so long. I haven't been tracking that much the past few years. So anyway, I'm not a pro level driver like freaking Burke or something. So yeah, it felt like I knew what I was going to do, and it almost just happened automatically that I could correct it just because I knew everything that was going on. So I'm still not sure. It's going to take some more time to determine if the manual rack is the way to go, because once I get the full aero on here and the flat bottom, like if I'm cornering at 1.5 G, let's say, it might be so much that, yeah, it's going to be too hard to drive it. I mean, I purposely built this car not necessarily just to go fast, but also to be kind of like a freaking, I don't want to say a wrestling match, but kind of like I want it to be very physical. I come from a motocross background, which is super physical, and it's more enjoyable to me if it's a freaking kind of like a struggle and I'm sweating, and like I don't want to be in there in the AC and just use my fingertips and like doing this. I want to freaking feel it, and I want to feel worn out at the end of the day, but I don't want it to be so difficult that when you're a driver that you can only do 2 laps or something, or you can't even do a whole day because you're just clapped. So I think legitimately with the aero and with the manual steering, I'll have to like train some, which is kind of weird, but I don't like to exercise unless I'm doing something that requires it. Like I'm fine with that. Like it gives me a reason to go in the gym, so I kind of like that. But again, just not sure if it's going to be too much. Stay tuned, like and subscribe. You'll find out, because I'll keep making these videos. So anyway, that's the steering feel. Oh, and another thing is I have manual brakes. So I have the home developments kit that uses a Civic, I think 7/8 master cylinder. And then I have the StopTech C43, C42. So when I was originally doing my brakes, I really like the StopTech kit design because of how light it is. Like it's not a giant 355 rotor or whatever. It's actually, it seems like it's more made for lower powered, lighter weight cars, because I don't want to carry around too much brake, because I'm all about efficiency, right? So anyway, when I originally purchased these StopTech brakes, I was told like, oh, you can't use these with manual brakes. And after talking with a few other people that have switched to manual brakes and doing it on forums and stuff, it's like, oh no, you can do that with just regular brakes. You don't need to have specially designed big brake kits for manual brakes. So anyway, I got the honed developments kit, and that's one of the things that when I normally drive is I'm very aggressive on the brakes. Like I remember when I had an instructor at Buttonwell one time, he's like, coming off the front straight, like I just jab on the brakes, and maybe I come on too aggressive, but anyway, I'm very aggressive with the brakes. So I think having the manual brakes is actually a good thing for me, because I don't immediately go to like instant full braking pressure. It causes you to kind of nose into it, because it definitely does take more pressure, and it took a couple laps to get used to that. Yeah, it's just more effort basically, but you feel freaking more. I don't know what the booster does, or if it's just everything gets numbed because of the power brakes, but I could feel way more in the brake pedal, and I was just like, man, this is crazy. This car is telling me so much, and I'm not literate enough to take all this information and know what to do with it. But hopefully I'll get there. So anyway, the manual brakes I think are a definite good upgrade. I mean, yeah, it might wear out your leg a little more over the day, but like I said, if you stay in shape, it shouldn't be that much of a problem. which is weird because one of the reasons I got into cars was because motocross requires so much fitness that cars that I can, you know, I can do this into my 60s with a car, but now I'm making this car to be more like a motocross bike. But anyway, that's not neither here nor there. But yeah, so the manual brakes, if you're thinking about like, I don't know, it seems crazy for my track car, or I've never driven a car, like I think it's worth it because you feel more of what's going on. So that's definitely a plus. Manual steering, still out on it. Engine felt freaking awesome. And even like, so Beau was there at the track with me, and he made a couple slight adjustments, but the whole time the car never felt like, man, this tune, like I'm on an aftermarket tune, you know. It didn't feel like throttle response was better than ever. Everything was really good. So like there was no issues with the tune whatsoever. The only issues I had was the oil pressure was dropping a little too low when I came off the track, when the oil was really hot, and the coolant doesn't really get up to a temperature that I think I was only seeing like 165, so I think it should be, you know, more like 180 or something like that. But those are easy things to fix. But and then so last but not least, the seat. I've never been in like a full halo seat with a 6-point harness, and it was freaking, it took a while to like be able to get in the car and know how to get myself properly strapped in by myself, because if you don't know, you're supposed to really be like sucked down, like they're supposed to be really tight. And back to motocross, I broke both of my collarbones riding dirt bikes, and that's exactly where the straps go, is right where I broke my collarbones. And not that it would be a big deal, but so my bones fused together kind of like this is what the doctor explained to me, and it just like made a big knot. This is before they used to, now they just instantly do surgery if you break your collarbone and pin it like to where it's back aligned, but previously they used to just say it'll grow back to fuse back together. So I have two big bone knots right where the freaking straps go, and it, like the next day I'm looking at my collarbones, I'm like, they're yellow, like they were bruising, they were a little bit tender. So yeah, it's definitely much more of a wrestling match, but it's so much freaking fun. Like it's exactly what I wanted, was something light, something that's very playful, and something that takes effort to drive. Like I've driven the new Supra, it's freaking phenomenal on track. Like, you know, it's a really good car, but it's like Ricky Bob, you could have a macchiato while you drive. It's just like it kind of, and you know, have the AC running. Like this thing, it's like if you're not paying attention, if you're not giving it full effort, your times are going to drop. Which, speaking of times, so I'm going to give all my excuses right now, and you can make fun of me in the comments if you want. But so I was on these RE71s. They're 4 years old because I bought them. Like that's the first thing I bought, because you always start with tires, like just to know what you're going to run, and then I built the car around it. So they're 4-year-old RE71s, new ones, and then they also had like flat spots from being in my little wheel stands that I had made out of 2x4s. But oddly, I didn't really feel that much vibration, so that must have went away pretty quick. But so I was on old tires. I was genuinely taking it very easy on the high speed stuff. That slowed my time down. I still ran a 201.5 to be specific, which, you know, I'm saying, hey, this car should be able to do sub 150, and I genuinely think it can with some dialing in and the proper aero and all that stuff. But I was going to go out for a fourth session and actually try to push it a little harder, because once I saw, like, I didn't even get my timing equipment to work till the third session, and I wasn't going for time whatsoever, but I just saw at the bottom 201, and I was like, oh, I could easily get sub 2 if I just pushed it a little bit on the high speed stuff. But anyway, I didn't want to go back out because, like I said, the oil pressure was dropping to like 10 or 12 psi when I came off track at idle, and it should be more like 20. So I was like, as cool as it would be to say I went sub 2 in my first outing with the car, I didn't, because it was too much invested to risk damaging it. So I'm gonna dial up the oil pressure, and I'll start running here at my local track, and then next time it'll definitely be no problem. Anyway, so yeah, that's my impressions. It's super cool. Hopefully I'll be at Super Lap Battle in 2 months. I'm gonna try to take it to the track just Sunday, and I'll try to get some in-car footage, because I got my timing equipment to work with. I have the AIM Smarty Cam, and I thought it was supposed to just kick on automatically. That's what it says, but it didn't. So anyway, I'll get some in-car footage. But yeah, I'm loving the way that the car is behaving. You know, it'll take a little bit of fine tuning, but it's not too bad. And then we'll just add the aero stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to go pretty quick with this thing. But stay tuned. There's still a lot more things that I have planned with it. That one really big one, the sequential. I can't wait to share that with you, but I don't want to give any more details until I actually get it, because it's a SEDEV, I'll tell you that much. And they haven't, I guess with the pandemic and everything, they got like bombarded, like everyone just started building race cars, so I won't get it till this summer, but I want to at least have some of the design work done to getting it in the car before I really start sharing it. But yeah, I'm pretty stoked. It feels really good to be back on track. I appreciate everybody watching, and like and subscribe, because I'm gonna do some cool shit with this thing. And the NA guys in California better look the freak out, because I'm gonna be passing cats. Peace.